Good evening, everyone. John Henry Soto here, along with George Batista. Welcome to this evening's program. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. As always, we really love the fact that you spend some time with us and that you actually give us some feedback on what we're doing here. And we really appreciate that because we know that the world is distracting and there's a lot of things going on. So the fact that you're spending it with us, we really appreciate that. I always say that at the beginning because it's true. George and I talk about that all the time. And yeah, how you doing, George?
I'm doing great. Every time I hear that intro, I don't know, I'm always expecting like Randy Travis to just start singing.
Welcome to Nashville.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Randy Travis is one of my favorites, actually.
Randy Travis is amazing.
He's an awesome dude, man. A little ill
I
these
know
days,
he's going through some stuff, but
but he's what a career.
yeah,
What an
agreed.
amazing career. Our prayers go out. I mean, he's fine, but I'm just
Yeah, don't kill the man yet, John.
yeah, I know he's fine. We're just saying we love him. Yeah. So today's episode, before I won't jump too far in. We have a sponsor, but we're going to be talking about three different subjects, three kind of major things that George and I touch upon on this show quite often, and George's show as well. So we're going to be talking about the entertainment industry as a whole, but music and film probably primarily. We're going to be talking about the health industry, and we're going to be talking about the food industry. So these three things, and we're gonna be talking. If you notice, the title of this particular episode is "Where's the Reset Button?" And we're gonna have a little fun today. We're gonna kind of go back and see when things were doing well in each of these industries, when they went wrong. Of course, this is all an opinion, based on actual facts that we've read.
And that's
Things
your
that
opinion.
Right, it's my opinion, but there are things that occurred in the history that anybody that's watching this can go back and research on their own if they choose. They choose so. And then the third thing, oh no, no, and then and then how can it go back to better, or at least how can it improve and be in a condition that will make the planet prosper, which is what we're always looking for here, right? So that's what this episode's about. If you're out there and you disagree, please chime in. Let us know how you feel. We are live right now. It is 7:03 Central Time and 8:03 on the East Coast. It is 5:03 on the West Coast. So we are live right now. If you have any comments, please tune in. But before we do that, we are going to give love to one of our sponsors. And for that, I will turn it over to George Batista.
Thank you, sir. The Artist Blueprint is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family owned and operated nutritional supplement company providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. Wow, 1985. Amazing. Find out why. They are amazing supplements. I take them every single day. Been taking them now for the past 17 years and remain healthy. Check out all their supplements at myvitaminresource.com. Now, don't forget, if you enter the promo code Artist Blueprint, you will get free shipping on your order. And then these are the last 2 days of the month to get 25% off their thyroid and metabolism supplements. Again, these are the last 2 days off of those. And those are great supplements, the multivitamin, the thyroid helper, fantastic supplements. So if you want ultimate energy and thyroid support and all that, check out those supplements. So again, wellness resources at myvitaminresource.com.
And someday that will say Artist Blueprint on that first slide.
One day next year, John will
I
fix
will
that.
get to it. I promise. We are a small crew here.
Billy quit.
Yeah, Billy and Cindy, they just stormed out.
Hate when that happens.
All right. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be discussing these topics. on resetting. We're having a little fun here, but at the same time, we do take what we're saying seriously, but we do it in a way that's tastes better for those that may disagree, and just start a conversation, because I think that's how you resolve anything, is by actually talking, by
Agreed.
communication. So communication is the solvent to all, and if you can get into a healthy communication, not a screaming match, not a cutting communication, letting someone actually finish what they're saying, and then you can counter with what you're saying, and then and I think that is a very healthy way of um, resolving something, or at least coming to some type of an agreement. um, so anyway, that's what we're doing today, and we're going to start with the we like I said, we have these three things: entertainment, health, and the food industry. And we're going to start with entertainment entertainment. um,
The key word.
Key word is entertainment. And this is entertainment. George and I, we are entertainers. We are musicians. We are artists. But at the end of the day, we are entertainers, right? And entertain, is really something that you can bring someone out of their current state, make them feel good for a little while. It's not a permanent fix, but it is an important one, because it rises people's levels of happiness and how they feel, to a point when they're happy, they can duplicate things, they can understand things. When your people are like, that's why there's road rage, right? People do these crazy things during road rage. People that are like normally sane people, they're normal, they don't do this off the but for some reason that drops them into a dangerous place. And if you just come out of road rage and somebody comes at you, you start singing, yeah, it might work. Very not, probably not. You're like, wait, somewhere over. But I think that entertainment is an important part of this planet. Artists are extremely important because they influence society, and they actually can change society's viewpoint. And if evil infiltrates a certain sector of entertainment, then it becomes a very dark place. And people who are consuming it, especially young people, would start thinking that that is how it should be. That is what I like, because everyone else is singing it, because it's on the radio every 10 seconds. And here's the music video with horns, whatever the is going on. And it's got approval. If it's approved, and not a majority approval, but there's a small sector that approves it, and then it gets put out. So it's really, really important entertainment. So what we're going to talk about the beginnings. And I have some stuff to say about that. So George, what are your thoughts on
Yeah, no, I
talking
agree.
about beginnings?
It's very interesting, and I've tried to think about when things have changed. Now, entertainment has at in many places, especially in the latter years, has pushed the envelope. Okay, in many ways, So I know there's a certain amount of, let's see how much we can get away with,
But
and that's,
has it
well, that's
more
been going.
today, you think, than in the
Well,
past?
well, I mean, I think it's been. I
Like
think.
like All in the
Well, yeah, but
Family.
wait. If you think about it, though,
I'm
think
thinking
about
of TV shows. So
right. But well, entertainment in general, right? Elvis
right,
Presley was considered pushing the envelope in 1950s,
true.
right? People watched that, and our grandparents or whatever, or that generation looked at that and said, "Oh my God, what the hell is this person doing?" That was considered taboo at the time.
I like
But
that
yet
preacher.
somebody thought about putting him on there and said, "This is going to be a big thing,"
Yeah, you
right?
ever, you ever saw that preacher, the young preacher is in black and white, and he's like, "Cause I know what rock and roll is, and it is evil. And when you see Elvis Presley, and he's grinding, it is evil. It is the devil that's in him." There's a whole footage. It's on YouTube. I remember watching it. I was like, wow, it's really intense.
Yeah, yeah,
But I get it. People were not interested in seeing a guy shaking his hips like that at that stage
right.
of where we were. I feel it's anyway. What were you saying?
No, no, no. I was just saying that. So yes, there's always. I think there has always been a pushing of the envelope through in, or at least in music, let's say, or maybe I would say in film too, to a certain aspect. You would know better than I do, I think, but definitely in music, right? Whether it was Elvis, whether it was, people, when the Beatles first came out, people thought it was crazy and devil music too. When
Long hair and all
yeah,
that
with the
stuff.
long hair and all that type of stuff. I mean, it was crazy, but it changed. But it's gotten to the point, and now where, I mean, how far do you go with it? I mean,
Right.
this is where I think there is a line that now that it crosses. You know,
Well, I think that line was put there recently. I don't think that line was there. I think if you go back to where people were saying whatever they wanted to say, and then people would just take it and have to deal with it as a as a we're there's benefits to being in a free country, right? Where
right?
we do have our rights to say what we want to say protected,
Hmm.
and those rights unfortunately protect bad people too, people
Right.
that are saying things that we're against,
Sure.
but that's the price that we pay to be in the country that protects a person's right to say it. I
Correct.
don't agree with what the guy is saying, but I agree that he has the right to
Right to
say
say
it.
it. Right.
And so if you look at television and you look at or even films, right? Like Mel Brooks would not be a thing today.
True.
Right? He couldn't do Blazing Saddles. He couldn't, Norman Lear would not be able to do All in the Family and The Jeffersons and all those shows, that were at the time really. I mean, they used the N word on those shows pretty easily,
Yeah.
because a lot of people were using it,
Right.
and the significance of those words, um, they they come out of anger and pain. There's a lot of pain in those words for a lot of people, so
Hmm.
it triggers pain, and at some point, within our school system, there was a lot of education going on in the school system based on these words,
Right.
and these kids grew up being more sensitive to the words and being more, or at least more aware that that's not okay,
Hmm.
and then pushing an agenda to ban the words,
Right.
ban things and stuff, and say you can't say that.
Right.
I agree that you should not say those words because those are just nasty words. It's like words I would never use in front of my children. You know what I
Right.
mean? Um, I disagree that it should be prevented from anyone else using them if they want to use them, because that's their prerogative. They have to deal with that and their maker. You know what I mean? If that's how they want to operate their lives, I think that there's much darkness in someone who feels that they want to use those words than anything else. You let them be in their darkness. You know what I mean? It's like it's painful to some, but overall, what it does is that it prevents all of us now. All of us get suppressed in some way, even though we are not saying those words.
Right.
We still feel the brunt of the suppression on that, and that's where I think that entertainment, goes back thousands and thousands of
Of
years.
course.
You know what I mean? It's even if you go back, there was a court gesture, right? That was strictly appointed just to make people laugh, and they were considered high level positions.
Hmm.
They sat next to the king. I mean, you just didn't become a court jester for no reason. It's like
Right.
it was an important job.
But
Yeah,
I think though that when you look back at the Norman Lears of the world, the Olin family, Jeffersons, those type of things, yes, they were considered like really over the top at that time. Obviously, they were, but they did it as a statement, an artistic statement, basically showing a problem.
Showing
meaning
the ignorance
showing the
also.
ignorance. Exactly, they
Yeah,
were
because Archie
showing the,
Bunker was
like they
ignorant.
didn't. You Archie Bunker wasn't there just because Archie Bunker was funny, and Archie Bunker was a statement of an issue, of a problem that was going on, and that
Right.
they were highlighting. Okay,
Correct.
and even Carol O'Connor talked about that in his interviews
100%.
after that. When they even asked him, are you like your character?
Oh
And
God.
he was like, no, this is,
He was the complete
he
opposite.
was the complete opposite of his character. But they did it, and this is again, and we'll get into it, also where I think entertainment fails for me personally, because I think the artistic side of entertainment that used to exist at that time, including in film and movies and in television, now it's different, because back then it was about the art.
Right.
Back then it was, and this is, I actually talked about this a while back with my wife, and this is one of the issues that I have with the entertainment industry, I think, and a lot of industries really. But I think that back then, music, film, and television were the artistic expression or the creative project first, and then what came after was, everything that came out of that, whether it was profit, whether it was notoriety, and all that type of stuff. But it was about having a product, having a good creative product. That was the number one goal, okay,
Right.
back then. And there was a lot of competition back then also. But that was the thing, because they knew that if they had a good product, film, television, music, whatever, that on the other side of it, there would be money to be made, and there would be a whole industry there. There would be a whole thing. I think nowadays that's flipped over.
Yeah.
I think now
They're looking at money
they're
first.
looking at money first, they're looking at profit first, and the artistic endeavor second, and they're looking at how to get the most profit out of the least work for the product that they have. So they're looking to widen that gap between the product and the actual profits that they make. And
Correct.
I think that's what's hurting all of the entertainment industry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can tell me what you think about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I agree. I agree with that, and I also, um, but I also think that TV shows that were very, very cheaply produced, became a big issue. And if you think about the real world on MTV, when that came about, it was extremely cheap to shoot.
Mm,
You didn't have to have a writer, so you save money on writers. You didn't have to really have a director. There was somebody on set that was telling people where to go, but
right.
it wasn't like cameras and angles and cuts. Editing was extremely simple.
Yeah.
It was like you're just trying to get reactions. It was all fake.
Yeah.
So if somebody says something and somebody earlier in a clips went like this, they take that expression and they put that after that person
Yeah.
when they said that,
Yeah.
when it didn't even match up. I know this for a fact because I have friends that edit in New York that told me that that's what they do.
Yeah.
For two, I won't give the names of the shows, but for two very popular reality shows, that they do, that
Right.
they edit for, and that's what. So for me, it's you're right. The how much money we can make with the least amount of work. Well, that's the least amount of work. Reality
Yes.
TV shows are the least amount of work.
Correct.
You get a cameras, you can do it, and you put people in situations that they're uncomfortable with, and you get them wild up, and then you put a camera on them. It's
Right.
it's actually quite cruel,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's actually a really cruel experiment. Um, the the entertainment industry starting in the let's just say from Charlie Chaplin, let's start the 20s, um, or let's start even early at the turn of the century. I would say, there was vaudeville,
Hmm.
right? And we had uh, incredible talent that would, because we didn't have any there was no television, and radio was very, very still new, um, and it wasn't, nobody had a radio back in the like 1910.
Right.
It's like, but there were these vaudeville shows that would go around town, and they would do these shows. They would set up a stage, and they would go, and that became very, very popular. Some of them actually then went into theaters, and the theaters would have these vaudevillian shows. The Marx Brothers started on vaudeville. and they moved over to Broadway. It was a funny thing because Groucho, would Chico would always say like, "Man, our show is so good, we should be on Broadway." And Groucho told him and said, "Why?" He goes, "Why do you think people are going to pay $3 to see us on Broadway when they can pay 50 cents to see us on vaudeville?" And then Chico was like, "Because it's on Broadway." We get to Broadway, people will pay the Broadway. We're good
Yeah.
enough to be on Broadway. And sure enough, they did go on Broadway, but they had a lot of experience. So we're looking at an era of television. When television finally came up, we're looking at vaudevillian talent that have had already 25, like the Marx Brothers. Before any of us saw the Marx Brothers on the big screen, they had 25 years of 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 success
Right.
on Broadway. They were
Right.
famous.
Yeah.
They were famous, you know what I mean? So by the time we saw them, they were all in their 40s. First time we see them, they're all in their 40s. They're all totally polished. So those early films that you see, the Marx Brothers, Lauren Hardy, um, Abbott and Costello, all those guys, they're vaudevillian talent that are completely polished, right? So when they came in, the studios, the controlling people, had nothing else to do but to give them a platform because that's where the talent is.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like today where they got the money, they pull people out of TikTok and they throw them out there. They do well for like 6 months, then they crash because they don't have the sustainability,
Right.
of somebody that's been on vaudeville for 20 years, and so that took us all the way into the 40s,
Mm-hmm.
where in the 40s now the big screen, Charlie Chaplin's already had been a legend. I'm going fast, but I do have a
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Charlie Chaplin already a huge, career. Buster Keaton already had a huge career. All these guys had these, and now in the 40s, now the talkies are becoming popular, right? In the early 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Now organization comes into play.
Right.
Now the big studios come into play. Now there's MGM and
MGM.
Warner
Yep.
Brothers. They're coming in and they're organizing it and setting up a system, the film system, the
Right.
one that kind of still is there
Yes.
to a certain degree,
Mm-hmm.
is still running the show. You
Yes.
know, but there's one thing that I think that really, really, when things really started hitting the fan, was when television started doing commercials separate from the show. There used to be a show, right? So you can talk about Sid Caesar Hour,
Mm-hmm.
Milton Berle, Danny Kaye, Danny Thomas, uh, Jackie Gleason. They all had their shows, and within the show, they would do like
They would do the
new.
commercial. They would hold it up, kind of like what
Correct,
podcasts do today, right?
correct, like right
They
now.
would. Yeah.
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 They would within the show, but then they
Yes.
started breaking away
Right.
in the 50s to doing separate ads
Right.
that they would pay. So Tide or whatever the product is would actually pay for a spot.
Yep.
You know, that changed everything, in my opinion. Now, this is again, these are all my opinions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now we have commerce being part of the entertainment. Whatever is entertaining has to sell my product. If I'm giving Jordan Batista $50,000 for you to show my commercial where I'm selling this water bottle, right? Well, what is it gonna? Who's gonna be the person that's gonna be doing? Well, it's Jackie Gleason. I don't want Jackie Gleason. Can we do something? Can we put it somewhere else? Well, he's on at this time. Well, move him. Well, we can't move him. Well, then I'm taking back my $50,000 and I'm gonna go to another network. Okay, okay, okay. Let's figure this out.
That's
So
it.
now commerce, corporate is now slowly taking control of the industry, the television industry at least.
Yes.
The film industry was sort of still separate because you had to go to a theater and you couldn't run, a commercial during a film, and that was like a separate kind of thing. Although now you can, because now you go to some theaters in between. Before you get to the movie, you got half an hour of,
That's
of
true.
nothing but
Of
nonsense.
commercials.
Yeah, nonsense, right? So this is a big portion that to me that the way it's going to change is if people what we're doing right now, we're podcasting. We have our own sponsor that we pick the sponsors. You know what I mean? We don't care if somebody tells us anything. You know, we don't have, I'll give you an example. I guess is Joe Rogan is a better example, right? Because I mean, he doesn't need to. No, I'll take it even a different approach. Rick Beato. If you don't know who Rick Beato is, he's an amazing dude. He's a really smart musical. I think he's kind of a genius actually on YouTube. And he interviews a lot of people. He talks about music. He's music education, but
Yes,
the
yes.
dude just knows a lot.
Yep.
And
Producer, musician. Yeah.
he's done some incredible interviews recently, right? He has no sponsors.
Right.
He doesn't want sponsors. He has control of his show because if he has a sponsor, the sponsor is going to be like, "Hey, can you interview this person?" Well, I don't really know. I don't really want that person to on my show. Well, we're paying you this money and we're your sponsor. You have to. And he doesn't want to fall into that trap. He doesn't even do sponsors for equipment. So he doesn't do reviews of. He has a signature guitar that Gibson made, but
Right.
he doesn't do reviews of different things. Neither does Tim Pierce. If anybody doesn't know Tim Pierce, he's also another guitar. He's a legendary session guitar player who's was the guitarist for Rick Springfield for all those records and all those tours, and then he played on everybody's record, from Phil Collins to Adele, and he's got a YouTube channel as well. No sponsors, no sponsors. You know, that is where the control comes. And those are the guys that I think are sort of leading the way to what the new entertainment is going to be in the future, where it'll be a numbers thing. It'll be like, okay, well, I don't have 100 million followers, but I got 1 million followers. So, but I don't have any, they come here to watch what we're doing and the information that we're giving out. They're not coming here to learn about what's the best washing, my clothes material, or what's the best, what nonsense pharmaceutical company with 100 side effects is going to be promoting my show. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not what they don't care about that. They're coming just for the content.
Well, I think that is, and you're right. But I think at the end of the day, the future of it is more of the independent way of doing things again.
Always.
And we've talked about it in many, but even the podcast, the independent media, the independent whatever. Okay. Because they, again, for these podcasts, there are podcasts out there, Bongino, for example, who are completely blowing away news networks, blowing away
Right.
by a lot.
Right. I was gonna say not by like a percent, like a 10%,
Right.
like by a couple 100%.
By a lot. I mean, and the point is that he, you know, and again, whether you agree with what he says or not, regardless of the point, that it's just an interesting thing that he has a couple of guys that works with him on a podcast that he does, and he's got millions of subscribers. And now here's the thing, though, he made it to a point where he can control it. Now he does have sponsors, but he says, and because I've watched him and I've watched him talk about it, he says my sponsors are going to align with what I'm doing, or they are not my sponsors.
Correct.
Okay. So he has the control, and he knows that he has the upper hand because there are people, being the fact that he's got millions of people, viewers, these sponsors want to be on this thing because they know he's blowing away networks.
Right.
So sometimes they're going to have no choice if I either go with him or I don't get it. So I might as well just do it.
Yeah.
And he's going to do what he's going to do.
Yeah,
So
it's money too. I mean,
it's that money, but it's also the exposure, right? Because the Joe Rogans of the world and the Bonginos of the world, who are like the top, they're in the top 5. Those two, okay. They between them, they blow away anybody in media. They blow away, okay.
Yeah.
Just two guys who are talking on a microphone. So at the end of the day, if you want the ultimate exposure, you're going to be on those shows because you're going to be, because that exposure is going to give you more exposure than all the other places at this point.
Right.
That's just the way it's going. So again, the alternative media, the podcasting, all that to me is going to be really where it goes as far as, and unfortunately entertainment,
Yeah.
I don't watch channel 7 and channel 5, channel 4 like I did when I was, unless it's sports, I'll watch sports, but other than that, I don't
Yeah.
watch those things. I watch alternative stuff. I watch old shows, because I love the old shows, and I watch, stuff on YouTube and stuff on Rumble and stuff on things that interest me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and that's where you get a choice now.
Exactly.
You have that choice, which I think in it concerns the big corporations, and that's why they decided to start suppressing
Right.
a lot of the it's hard to suppress somebody like Rogan, because he's already
Yeah.
transcended the whole industry,
Yep.
so he's a different caliber right now, and all those guys that are up there, but you know people who are watching them and then like want to have their own opinion, but you don't have a lot of audience, then you get suppressed, because
Yeah.
they want to kind of like hold down the little guy. The big guy, they're trying to bring him down too, but they can't as
Right.
easy as anyone, as a
Exactly.
smaller guy. Um so we talked about where it was, we talked about where it is, and where it can go. And I think that I'm going to add one more thing, and then we'll go on to health. But I don't think we've really dove into the blockchain yet world
Hmm.
of the decentralized
Right.
internet section. I think that it's a conversation that scares a lot of people. It's very confusing
Yeah.
to people, and they make it very confusing because they don't want people to just figure it out. Well, I
Right.
figured it out. I spent years just trying to figure things out, reading books and going about, and I figured it out. And the the, the short of it is, don't call me short. The short of it is, if I have a show, I don't need StreamYard. I don't need Zoom. I don't need YouTube. I don't need Rumble.
Right.
And these are platforms that we use, and we love these platforms, and they're all
Right.
great platforms, but we wouldn't need a third party for George to see the show, or for an audience member to see my show. I would have an actual blockchain link that's fully protected and can only go one way. And if you understand a blockchain, you can't think of it this way. I'll explain a blockchain, right? So this is, let's say this piece of paper right here is a blockchain. It's just a chain, right? And on the chain, you have different things happening on each chain here, right? You can't. So people say, "Well, can somebody break into the chain?" No, you can't break in, because if you break into the chain, this that would happen.
Right.
I can't put this back together again. So there's no way that somebody can break into the chain
Right.
without it being spotted. There's also a billion different calculations being thrown into this that scrambles it every like second, that you can no genius on earth is ever going to figure. Nothing can figure it out, not even a computer can figure it out. Now I'm sure that there's a lot of suppressive people out there that are trying to figure out how to destroy it. One of the ways that they've done it is that they've regulated the crypto
Yeah.
to a degree where they crashed it, basically by bringing in government regulations. They also, which is funny, they also have banks now doing crypto, so you can go to a bank and get your own crypto. It's not You're not getting crypto you're not getting crypto. You're getting the bank.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
bank is the
Yeah.
same thing. They're
Yeah.
they're they're controlling your crypto. It's just like we have cash.
Yep.
I my check goes right into the bank, right, and the bank has my money. But this is part of the scam that they're getting people on, and that it's not your money. It's not your money, but it can be if you have actual crypto.
Right.
If you actually have an actual wallet and you have an external wallet, I got all that stuff, and you have money on, or you have your crypto. It's not money. I don't want to call it money, but if you have your crypto on a separate thing, you can connect more. And so if you have crypto, I have crypto, I have a channel, you send me a little percentage of something to be part of my channel grows just like a Patreon account, just like any kind of a other account. It grows, but it goes directly. So you don't have to pay a third party to pay me, like a Cash App or a PayPal or anything like that. And there's no the interaction is between just two people,
Right.
you know. So this is how, and I've actually built I've told you this before. I built a little theater,
Yeah.
where you can actually go to my theater, and it's on the blockchain, and you can actually sit. If you're an avatar, you can pick an avatar if you want to go that route, and you can watch. You can sit down on a chair. The avatar, of course, it'll just be on the screen. If you have
The VR
VR
headset.
headset, you could actually be in the theater, and you
Yeah.
can watch my movies. You can watch our show. You can watch whatever. You can talk to people right next to you because they're there also doing with the same thing. So the experience is really odd, but I can see where that's going to be a factor at some point. Now, maybe not right now. Maybe I'm 10 years maybe ahead of the thinking ahead. Maybe it's 10 years. Maybe it's 2 years. I think it's sooner. I mean, I know it's happening now,
It is. Yes.
and I know it's happening now big time. I know it's happening now big time, but it's not mainstream. Mainstream will not put this on there. They're gonna just say how crypto is dangerous, how crypto is, I don't know how we got into this subject, but how crypto is is an easy way for drug trafficking,
Mm.
for sex trafficking, for bribes, for all this stuff. And I'm thinking, how is that any different from money?
That's true.
What are they using now? Boneheads.
Yeah, no, that's true. And
Okay.
there are decentralized platforms that are
Oh,
that
100%.
are out there. I'm even
Yeah.
a part of one already, and you have to do a little more investigation because they're just emerging, so they're not
Yeah.
out there, but they exist, and
Yeah.
you can go on there, you can
There's a
post
whole
on there.
world out there. You can
Yeah,
literally create a little avatar and you can go from store to store shopping.
yeah, yeah. There's a
I've
lot.
done it.
There's a lot of amazing stuff. So I think that is something that is that is going. And the cool thing is that again their not algorithm, but I guess their software. I don't know what it's called. Tech is actually available. They
Right.
make it available where you can take it and create your own thing.
Create
So
your
it's
own. Right.
not a secret. Where it
Right.
actually they make it available, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And I think that that's where the fear lies,
Right.
with the big, because it will destroy pretty much everything. It
Right.
will crash the banks and everything. So, I think it's got to be done in a way. Anyway, greed is always going to be the name of the game for a lot of the people that are involved in it. I mean, right now, just this cryptocurrency company ripped off a bunch of people, because again, they did what the banks are doing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
They said, get crypto from us, and all they did was just take everybody's crypto and then cash it in and skip town.
Yep.
So that stuff is, you have to be very cautious about it. And don't get into crypto just because I said anything. If you're really interested, you can follow Crypto Casey is a YouTube person that I follow. She's probably somebody that I follow a lot because she's been doing it alone. She's young and she's really into what's going on, and she gives great clear updates that make you understand the lingo in layman's terms, so you
Mm.
can understand what's happening, with government and crypto. Okay, so we went off topic. Well, not really off topic. I think that is the future. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're doing where it was, what when it was
Yeah.
good, what it turned into that was bad, and how it is now. I think we
Yeah.
covered that with the industry. I think
Yep.
how it's going to get good is what you said: control of the individual,
Hmm.
controlling the market, and having the decentralized shows and independent shows, artists.
Right.
Health. Now I'm gonna for that. George is the expert on this, and
Yeah.
talk about a little bit about and I know about the health industry in the beginning of time, how it was overtaken by those guys when they decided that the remedies that we've been using for thousands of years that have been working are going to be monetized now in some way.
Correct. So prior to that, you could say prior to the 1900s, but it was really 1910. But prior to that, you had your local doctors, right? Doctors made house calls, right? Your local, that type of thing. They had their little practices. and they would use their remedies. They would use remedies. I mean, those remedies included everything from iodine. Iodine was a big remedy back then, okay?
Yeah.
Because iodine,
I
and this
remember even my grandmother having iodine in the house.
exactly, iodine was a huge thing. But again, a lot of plant-based remedies and stuff like that for even all kinds of trauma and all kinds of things like that. So and again, even surgeries and all that was done back then, but they had it was more crude. Obviously, they didn't have all the technology they have now. So there's that. But as far as chronic things and all that, now keep in mind we didn't have the chronic stuff that we have now. Back then, I mean, honestly, heart attacks. By the way, heart attacks weren't even a thing prior to the 1900s. They weren't even a big deal back then. There was like, if you had a heart attack, it was like a major thing.
Now,
Okay.
now, if I have to, if I'm pretending now to be someone asleep, and I'll ask you this question, I'll say, yeah, but no, the reason is because back then they didn't take records, so you didn't know how many heart attacks we had because they didn't keep proper records, George.
Really, John? Get out. It's interesting that you say that because even when they have, let's just go with your premise. Even when they looked at records, even when they started keeping track of records, okay, right? The trend still goes up this way.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't change. The trend goes up, right? We're the sickest society ever on the planet. It's amazing that we still survive. But let's just go with that for a second. Okay, so then of course we have, at that time we have the Carnegies, right? Carnegie was a big dude, and Rockefeller, right? He owned the oil industry, and they had all the steel and the oil and these types of things. And then what did they do? And just so for the folks that don't know, I'll give a quick thing. Basically, they hired a gentleman named Abraham Flexner. And Abraham Flexner, what his job was to go to all the teaching facilities that taught medicine of the time, and to find out what was going on. What were they teaching? Was it chiropractic? Was it herbal medicine? Was it, whatever health modalities they used? He had to take a record of what was going on. So Abraham Flexner took a few years and went to all the medical facilities and basically took a record and did a whole report. Came back to with the report to Carnegie and Rockefeller and these guys, because these were the biggest tycoons of the time. Okay, and he came out with what's called the Flexner Report. Okay, and you can look it up; it's online. And it's basically a long report, just kind of detailing all the things that were going on and everything that was being taught. Well, lo and behold, Rockefeller had at the same time figured out that if you take petroleum, okay, you can take petroleum and you can make a medication out of petroleum and put it together with plants. So it's a chemical in a plant. And he made what's today the modern day pharmaceutical. Okay.
Wow.
So that's kind of how that came together. So you basically take a plant that you put the chemical part on it, you stick it on together. And this is just a very general overview, but basically that's what he did. And then he basically said, I am going to fund the medical industry from this point going forward. However, we are going to get rid of all those things that the Flexner Report talks about, which is, again, chiropractic, herbal medicine, all these types of things. That's no longer going to be taught in medical schools. I am going to fund this new curriculum in the medical schools, but it's going to be based off of my petroleum products, which are now pharmaceuticals. And basically, that's exactly what he did. He gave money to all these schools, because remember, they had money to burn at that time, and they changed the curriculum. And they basically threw out everything that was natural and that we did for thousands of years. And they based it on this new paradigm that was the pharmaceutical industry. Now, that's how the pharmaceutical industry technically was born. And this was around 1910. And then from that point forward, that's what became health. Okay. So now we flash forward to what's going on through the years, right? Because now With that, which is very interesting, you actually start to see a steep curve. Okay. And now it's not just pharmaceuticals. You have to remember you have the industrial revolution, you have all these things that are out there, the toxic chemicals, all these types of things. So it was a perfect storm of a lot of things where cancer rates started coming up, heart attacks, all these chronic illnesses started to rise. I mean, literally, just started to go up. And you basically, that system has existed to this day. And that's the system that exists today.
Hmm.
So part of the issue is, and again, and I say that, and one thing you mentioned, John, is greed. And I will say that, in my opinion, greed is really, at the end of the day, the underpinning of all this.
It's true.
Okay.
100%.
Because if you can find a way to make the most money, you're going to do that, even if you're a pharmaceutical, if you're a big corporation, whatever it is. And if you're going to separate the profit you make from the products and the people and that type of thing and create that huge gap, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
So now here's an interesting thing, John, that goes on today. I haven't really talked about it before, but today, if you have, there's a couple of things that exist today. Okay. If we look at healthcare, you have the pharmaceutical company, you have the insurance industry or the insurance company. Okay. You have the pharmacy that sells or that gives, your products. And then you have the person that comes and consumes it. Okay. Well, in between this, you have, and this is, a lot of people don't know this, in between that, you have a person or an entity called the pharmacy benefit manager. Okay. Now you're asking, what does the pharmacy benefit manager do, George? Okay. Well, the pharmacy benefit manager he or she is a person who is hired by the insurance company. Okay. So that's their employee. Their job is to negotiate the price of the drug with the pharmaceutical company to the end user. Okay, so what the end user pays on the copay side. Okay, now here's what they do. They go to, let's say a new drug comes out. They go to the pharmaceutical company and they say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the average person has access to your drug, but they negotiate a rebate with that pharmaceutical company. So let's say the drug costs $100. Okay, that pharmacy benefit manager will negotiate a rebate with that company, with that pharmaceutical company. So let's say the rebate is $50. Okay, so that pharmaceutical company has to pay that rebate to that pharmacy benefit manager. What do they do with that? They take that rebate, and we're going to, just for very simple purposes, they take the $50, they pocket 10, and 40 goes to their employer. Okay, so 40 of that goes to the insurance company or whoever hired that. Now that's not all, John. Okay, there is what's called a tier system for drugs. Okay, there's a tier system. So let's just say tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So tier 1 is the lowest price a drug is to the consumer. So when you go get your copay for a drug in the pharmacy, if you pay $15 for that drug, right, that's the lowest you're going to pay for that drug. That's in tier 1. When you go down to tier 3, that is the most you're going to pay. So let's say it's $200 or $300 for that drug. Okay. The pharmacy benefit manager's job will tell the pharmaceutical company, you pay me this rebate, I'm going to make sure that your drug goes from tier 3 to tier 1. Now, the reason why we want to do that is because when your drug is at tier 1, there's more people that are going to come beyond it because it's cheaper.
Right.
Okay. And their game is that they want to, it's all numbers. They want to get the most people on that drug. Okay.
Right.
So what they do is they get the rebate, they turn around, and then they take the drug from tier 3 to tier 1. And then you get this whole crop of people now that pay $10 for their drug, and they're all on it. Okay. But what that creates is a problem for the pharmaceutical company, because the pharmaceutical company says, but these rebates that I have to pay keep going up, which means that I have to increase the price of my drug in order to make a profit. So that's what they do. They increase the price of the drug. So the drugs keeps going up. The pharmacy benefit manager keeps making a ton of money. Okay. And it goes around that chain, and more people get on the drug. They're only concerned about how many people get on the drug. That's their bottom line,
Right,
because
right.
that helps their profits,
So
which
that's
helps their
their, yeah,
investors.
that's
So
their
that
product.
is, and again, this is very general, but that is the cycle that happens with pharmaceutical drugs and pharmacies. And they testified in Congress, actually, these people talking about it, and they said, we can mark down the price of these drugs, or else we don't make money.
Right.
That's their bottom line. So that's the system, folks, that you're in. This is the insurance-based system. This is the way the system is currently done. You know, it's crazy.
So, ugh, God. So on top of that, I mean, that's a system that's something that was created obviously for the sole purpose of making money, because the
Correct.
product itself does not handle the problems.
Correct.
Most of them do not handle the problem. They do not. There's no end game. There's no cure. You know what I mean? There's no
Correct.
like end game. You're on this for this amount of time and then you're done, right?
Correct.
Unless it's an antibiotic and maybe you're on it for a week, whatever.
Right.
But generally, if you're on a the goal is to just get you on for the longest amount of time onto the drug,
Correct.
for as long as they can that get you on there, and then coming up with enough medications, and then even changing names of some medications to
Yes.
something else when the
Correct.
patent runs out on one drug. Which, by the way, to get a patent is like what, $100 million
Yeah. Yeah.
for a patent for a drug. And this is part of the reason why, and we'll go into our next thing. Well, anyway, thank you, George. That was awesome. I mean, so that gives us where we were or how it started. The original thing was the doctors in the beginning would go out and they generally, I would think, and I don't, maybe you can back me up on this, or at least you have more information on this, but doctors back then probably had whatever remedies were put together by Native Americans, by
Correct.
people that were in the, on the farms, that kind of
Correct.
knew what certain plants did, and just centuries of doing one thing with like a certain plant. You know that it helps a certain thing. That's
Right.
what you use it for, and it just kind of goes down through traditions, especially through Native Americans.
Exactly. But also, and also even deeper than that, the doctors back then had a relationship with their patients. Okay.
Right.
They established, they were the
And
local
now
doctor.
it's sort of
They
like
they would they would
a
they would
nuisance.
yes, they knew their doctor. They had their doctor. Some of these people were born, and they were their doctor for
For
years,
their whole
years and
lives.
years and years, for
Yeah.
their whole life sometimes.
Yes. Until the
They
doctor
would give the
retired.
doctor gifts at Christmas. They would give,
Yeah.
it was that type of relationship. Now, 80% of doctors work for some kind of big corporation.
Right.
So now when you go see your doctor, okay, their job is to go through a checklist. They see you for roughly 7 minutes because they're seeing 30 to 40 patients a day. They see you and they go through the checklist. Are you up on your this? Did you get vax? Do you have this? Did you get your colonoscopy? Did you get this? Did you get this? Blah, 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 blah. Are you maintaining your medications? Should we up the medications? It's a very quick thing, right? But the interesting thing is that when you look at these corporations now as they're presently constituted, if you go back in 6 months or to a year to see that doctor again, odds are that doctor won't be there anymore, because those doctors now move from job to job, from corporation to corporation. My in-laws, who are in their 80s and 90s now, have in the last couple of years have seen probably 5 to 6 primary doctors.
Just completely different. Just
It's a
moving
different
around.
person every single time.
Wow.
Okay. And even the specialists move around. So if they're going to go to their heart doctor's no longer there. He's gone. He goes to another corporation. You bring another guy in. And remember, these people don't know you. They know the numbers,
Yeah.
but they don't know you.
Yeah.
you know. So now that is the other problem, because now everything is so corporatized in medicine that you're just a number, you're just a series of checklists, unfortunately. And then, you know, and then you're out the door, and then by the time they come back, you're gone.
So, do these doctors leave because they have a better offer?
I mean, it's a combination of things. Sometimes it's a better offer. Sometimes it's more of a convenience, because a lot of doctors do commute from where they are to different offices and stuff like that. You know, you call a doctor sometimes, and they go between two offices,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
They
I've seen that.
right, and then it's like, well, Doctor Smith now is no longer working in the Fallsburg office. Now he's working in the Middletown office. He's no longer here. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Now I got to see somebody else, or I have to travel to Middletown to see Dr. Smith.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it creates that inconvenience. So yeah, a lot of it is, it's
So
a
the
combination.
consumer, because that's what they are, consumers. They're not patients. They're
Right.
consumers. The
Correct.
consumer basically is the one that gets the raw deal,
Of
basically,
course.
and
Of
they're the ones
course.
to pay. And I guess it's with everything. When you have greed and you have um, no real solutions to health except finances. And I mean, I know that there are people that become doctors. We have doctors in our family, right,
Yes, we
George?
do.
That I'm 100% know that they got into it because they wanted to help.
Correct.
So this is not a knock on every doctor out there that's wanted to do something, but it is a system that no matter how good of a person you are, which I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful doctors out there, you have been put into a system
It's the
that
system. That's
it
all it
is
is. Yep.
a rotating, it
Correct.
is a treadmill, and you are on it, and you get pushed out. The next batch comes in, and they get run through the mill as well. And that's part of what I guess that's what's discouraging as far as health is, and moving forward. I mean, I would say that the future, we've gone to where it was to where it is now to how it can get better. Um, for me, it can get better is by almost like what we were talking about the entertainment. There's independent, there's George's show. You can watch George's show. He's had, in case anybody knows, George has had some of the best doctors in the country on his show, and
Yep.
he's interviewed them.
Yep.
Doctors. We're talking about doctors that actually are in that world, but I have also kind of have sort of seen the light in some stuff and
Right.
decided to educate people
Yep.
into what they've learned by being in that system. So, watching George's show, watching other doctors that I won't even mention on the show because we might get flagged, but there are other doctors that are on YouTube that you can see that these were medical doctors that I guess got a conscience or something, and they just decided to kind of maybe give us a little bit more of information than the industry wants us to have.
Exactly. And in interviewing a lot of these people, one of the things I always ask them, if you ever watch my show, you'll see it, is why did you go from that to this? Or why do you take the integrative approach, maybe a combination of both, right? Or why did you completely change into this? And really, it's the same answer. When I was in that system 100%, I didn't feel like I was actually getting people healthy. I didn't feel like I was doing what I became a doctor to do.
Right.
And that's the big thing. Okay. And they when they turned around and they did the actual, and to their credit, they did the reading, and they did all the educational stuff on the other side of things, and they realized, you know what, I can actually affect people more by doing
Right.
this, or again doing a combination of things,
Yeah.
where I can give them the option of what they want to do. Okay. And it's a very interesting thing. But I think moving forward, there's going to be a parallel health system. There already is parallel health systems or growing. So I think for me, I agree with John 100%. You have to practice self-health. You have to. You have no choice. You're either doing that or you're in the system,
Yeah.
completely.
Find a what do you call it?
A functional medicine
Functional
doctor,
medicine
or a
doctor.
naturopathic doctor. Okay. But you have to do everything you can, first of all, to what somebody I remember said, maintain the car outside of the garage. You know what I'm saying? Maintain
Right.
it yourself. Do everything
Yeah.
you can. And then if you do need help, go to your functional medicine doctors. Go to your find a naturopathic doctors. Yeah, you may have to pay some more money to do that because they're outside the system.
You
However,
go less,
you go less and you
and
can
your
spend an
quality of
hour
life
with
will
these
be
people.
better.
These people spend an hour with you. They'll tell you exactly what's going on in your body,
Yeah.
okay? And then on top of that, there are some parallel health systems now that are emerging that are actually focused on the patient. They're focused on whether they do
I've seen that
telehealth.
happening now too. That there
Yes,
seems to be more attention on wanting to actually help people.
exactly. They meant and again they have an integrative approach. They have supplements, but they also have stuff if you need the conventional stuff. But they'll do telehealth with you for an hour. They'll talk about what you're eating and what you're doing and that type of thing. So look for those types of things. Again, this is your health you're talking about. So in
Yeah,
my opinion, it's.
100%. And I'm also thinking like, it's the vehicle we get around in
Right.
until we're gone. You know what I mean? It's like, why wouldn't you want to try to do the best that you possibly can to try to keep it functioning well? Because yes, maybe medicine can keep you alive longer, but not well.
Right. Correct.
So what's the point of walking around feeling horrible because you got to take a medicine at a certain time, and if you don't take it, you're sick, and if you're sick, you can, it's just why do that? I mean, I've told the story before about the functional medicine doctor that actually cured my son, basically, not basically cured my son,
Yep.
period,
Yep.
of his ailment. And whereas before he was misdiagnosed, he was given the wrong drugs, he was told the wrong thing, and right now, if we were actually in that boat, I don't know where my son would be. He probably would be paralyzed.
Yep.
He could be paralyzed.
Yep.
He could have been paralyzed. And definitely, and still taking medications because
Yeah.
they said he has to take it for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And he was only like 3 years old at the time. He's
Wow.
7 now. He's running around. He can't stay still now. And every time he runs around, for me, making noise and jumping for me is a joy. I'm like,
You're right.
yes, good.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, that's definitely something that I think, the shifting of the focus, like what you said, for a reactive, from a reactive, uh, profit driven model, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yep.
And try to centralize something into prevention.
Yes.
Hey, more holistic,
Yes. Yep.
you know, and also something that's, equitable because Lord knows that there's such a huge, you know, what do you call it, a systemic injustice when it comes to medical. I
Yeah.
mean, I grew up in the South Bronx, and our medical places were just horrendous.
Right. Right.
I mean, I would assume if you go to Park Avenue in New York City and you go to the doctor's office there, you probably get a little bit better treatment there.
Right. Right.
And the doctor will probably spend a little bit more time there because you have a lot of money going into a place like that.
Right.
But if you're in where I grew up and you go to El San Juan Center, do you remember the San
Yeah,
Juan
I
Center?
remember that. Yes.
And you go in there, that was a butcher shop.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
butcher shop. People laying on the floor. They're just trying to see a doctor for them to give you, it was really, really a scary thing. So there is that also. And I work for an organization now where I hear a lot about this. And this is one of the things that gets me the most upset is that there is no care.
Mm-hmm.
They do not, and I hate to be that guy that goes into this, but it's like it's when you see that you have the possibility, you have the money, you have the wherewithal, the technology to make the planet well, and you don't, you make the planet sick. Or let's just take this country. You make just the whole country have, heart disease, diabetes, everything through the roof, but yet you have the technology, the money, the even the infrastructure to actually handle the whole country is already in place.
Yeah.
If someone would just raise their heart and say, "Man, I want this country to be the healthiest country in the world." But no, they're pushing Fruit Loops and they're pushing, things that other countries won't even allow in their borders.
True.
We have it on our shelves with lies on them,
Right.
complete lies. And I'm talking about this because we're going into the food
Yep.
section,
Yep.
which we're at the top of the hour. So if you're still hanging around, we're going to be here for a little longer. Hang out with us. We appreciate it. We're going to talk about food because the food industry is a culprit of this whole thing that we've been talking about. Um, it's a perfect system when you think about it. If it was a system of that would help people, would be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant system that hurts people. You have food that does not give you the nutritional value that you need,
Right.
the supplements that you need to function properly.
Right.
So you get sick. So who do you got to go see? Well, you got to go see a doctor.
Right.
Then you have the doctor who's going to give you the medication that the pharmaceutical ingested or infused with petroleum and whatever else thing that was clinically tried. I don't know who they tried it on, but whatever happens, they don't care if I mean, look at Vioxx, right?
Uh,
50,000 people died from Vioxx. They just paid out the money.
yep.
Oops.
Yep.
Yeah, we knew it was in the report that it causes heart attacks, but we just put it out because we thought it would help more than kill more. Well,
Right.
50,000 people probably think differently now, and especially their families. They definitely think differently.
That's right.
So then you have the drugs, and then you have the food. So it's a circle. It's
Yes.
just the circle of life. It's a circle of death,
Yep.
basically, and you're in that circle of death. So one of the things that George and I don't know why we were saved, but for some odd reason, when we were kids, it's for those of you who are watching for the first time, George and I are cousins. We grew up together. We played in a band together. We played rock and roll. We recorded records, and we played a lot, and we had a lot of fun. But we were always into fitness.
Yeah.
We were always into lifting weights and trying to drink things that was all sugar, but at the time we thought it was healthy. But we were really, really aware of it. And George, so much so that he went into that industry and went into the field of wellness, and he cured himself of allergies, and he cured his back. And George, if you knew George growing up, and I did. George was the guy that walked around with a tissue everywhere he went. Everywhere he went, he had tissues because
True.
it was always allergy season wherever he was.
Yeah.
Um, but he was able to handle that through natural remedies. And so, and I also had a back, and I went to a chiropractor. The chiropractor changed my life, and all these things. We have stories. We have our own personal stories that we can share, and we have shared in the past. But going into the food, and what George said earlier, you have to take responsibility for your health
Yep.
because they don't care. They want to sell you convenience. This is why a lot of people buy the food that they buy.
Yeah.
It's a convenient food. It's like, and it's also the price. Well,
Right.
even Fruit Loops, a box of Fruit Loops, then they have a big bag of something called Loops of Fruit. And that one is even cheaper.
That's
It's
true.
even cheaper
That's true.
than the Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops are made like with higher quality,
Yeah.
and then loops of fruit, whatever the hell I said, are made with like asbestos or whatever they're made with, but they're made with like really bad quality crap. And I think that you have to go and you have to read the label, and also know that those labels lie.
Yeah.
I've the whole soy milk thing that happened. Everybody was into soy milk. Oh, soy milk is the best. Soy milk is toxic.
Yeah.
Soy milk has like this. What is it? What's that thing called in soy milk? That
Soy lecithin.
Yeah, it freaking shuts down your liver.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible for you. Same thing that happened with what's the other one that became popular for a minute? Uh, um, Soy. There's certain coconut milks that are actually
Coconut milk. There's almond milk. There's
almond milk. Almond milk
almond
is the one
milk.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
almond milk also not good. Now there are certain coconut milks if you get the proper
The
one,
proper one. Exactly. Exactly.
they are good for you. Because
Yes.
coconut is like a
Well,
great.
they're actually now, because they've become a big thing now. There are brands that have branched out that are much better for you. So
Yeah,
just
yeah,
keep
and
that
you
in
can
mind.
look at them
Yes.
at the labels. I mean, like I said before, you got to really not only if you don't look at just the label, because I think, and you could tell me about this, George, but I think you have to go to like a website that just deals with this kind of stuff, or at least go to a doctor that's on, on whatever platform you desire to find out what really this product is. Because sometimes they'll say, oh, this is only includes natural ingredients.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Snapple got sued for saying
Not right.
made with the best thing on earth, natural, and they weren't. They
Right.
lied.
Well, because you have to remember when they put there's guidelines to making those labels. Okay,
Right.
that's number one. But those guidelines,
Brian said oat milk. That's right. That
oat
was
milk.
another one.
Okay, yes.
It's another one.
And goat's milk too, by the way.
Goat's milk. Another one.
That's another one. There's rice milk too. Now we're going through all of them.
Rice milk. Yeah.
But
Steak
anyway,
milk.
there's guidelines when you make those labels, and those guidelines say, even those guidelines have loopholes because those guidelines say only there's a certain amount of this that is allowed in, or there's a
Sure.
certain amount, like organic doesn't have to be 100% organic. It only could be
No.
it only has to be like 80% organic. Okay.
Right. Right.
Natural is only like very small percentage that actually has to be natural. Okay. Even though they can put it on the label, but it doesn't have
Right.
to be all natural or milk of magnesia.
That probably is better for you.
That's true. So number one is the guidelines. Okay, if and again, because part of that is also what funds that, right?
Right.
So that's number one. Okay. Second thing is when you read your labels, you gotta kind of, unfortunately, you have to be a little bit of a detective and know what's in that label. Okay, so you may have to do some searching and find out exactly what's in it.
And
And
this is why.
obviously,
Yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and then again, when you're looking at a label that is like a rap sheet like this long, okay, with half of the things you can't pronounce, well, that is a clue that half of that stuff is just toxic
Chemicals.
stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
if there's one or two ingredients in there, you're on the right track. The less ingredients you have, and the ones that you can actually pronounce and say, okay, yeah, that looks good, you're on the right track. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the thing with labeling. So
Like I bought a bag of almonds,
mhm.
and the ingredients it said almonds.
Yeah, there you go. There you
That
go.
was it.
I actually have I love organic popcorn where the ingredient is popcorn and maybe sea salt, and that's it.
Right.
It's like these two things, and I'm
Yeah.
like perfect.
Yeah.
But that's
So it's so
and yeah,
crazy.
yeah, and again, unfortunately, a lot of those things, because of the way the food industry is, a lot of those products are going to be made by smaller companies because they're not part of that big food chain. Okay,
Right.
so you have, this is why I say support local, support those companies because they're smaller companies, and it may cost a little bit more to get those products, but at the end of the day, again, you're doing good things for your health. Now, I want to address something really quick in the food thing, just really quick, not to make it too long. But again, we also have to remember with the food that it actually starts in the ground
Right. I
because
was going to mention that. I was going to mention that about the
the soil.
industrial farming.
Yeah, the industrial farming. The industrial farming is really what's killing a lot of this. So you have your pesticides, you have your herbicides, you have all that stuff. The way the farming, the way the ground is tilled, and all these types of things. Okay, so now when you look at it, because remember the minerals come from the ground, right? Minerals come from the ground, and the plants take up the minerals. Then we eat the plants, and we get in those minerals. When you're looking at the chain of food, okay. However, now the way things are grown, 25% of the magnesium is gone,
Mhm.
35% of the selenium is gone. Okay. So you're operating, when you get these foods, okay, you're already operating behind the ball, because the point is that a lot of those minerals it's very devoid of these minerals.
Right.
So, and then even the plants, when you spray these plants, it's a harder time for the plants to even uptake the minerals, because of the spray actually prevents that. So you're even getting, when you're pulling the plants, they have less and less of the minerals in them. So now you
Right.
take that in, okay, that's what goes on your shelf. Then you buy that food, you cook it, okay, that's going to strip away a certain number of minerals and things just through the cooking process, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to put that on your plate, you're going to eat it. You're what, 40% maybe, if you're lucky,
Right.
40% from in one meal. So you're not getting the
You're not getting
vitamins
the
and the
full thing.
minerals
Yeah.
that you needed from your diet. This
Right.
is
Well,
part of that problem. Okay. And this is not count. This is just the fresh stuff. I'm not talking about the
right.
stuff that's the Fruit
Not,
Loops
not
and the
even
Fruit of
talking
Loops
about
and all that
the
stuff.
right. Right. Because I mean, the food industry is their biggest emphasis is on mass production. Right.
Correct.
I mean, that is their biggest thing. It's mass production, industrial farming. Then the foods are highly processed,
Right.
right? That lead to health problems that we have: obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, um, and in order for us to return to like something that's more sustainable, to we have to individual farming, small
Right.
farms,
Yep.
clean farms. You can find them. You have to search for them, and you might have to drive a little bit.
Correct.
You might have to drive a little bit. I mean, it's really a responsibility. It again, it has to do with greed. It has to do with finances in their pockets. They trying to make the bottom line. A lot of these companies, they make you think, the Food Trade Commission and all the companies that are involved in there, they make you think that you have a choice,
Right.
because but if you go in and you look at the 12 companies, there's about 12 companies that have
Yes.
all the food, and it branches out. One company may branch out into like something that says natural, something that we could, I buy the natural one. It's the same company.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's another one that branches out. It's the bad one.
Right.
Every single one of them has their version of what they think is a healthy choice, because they know that they're making money regardless of which decision you make. You want to have obesity, you want to have heart disease, you want to have, that's on you. That's your choice, right? I mean,
Yep.
again, power of choice is senior, right? So if that's the choice that they want to make, knock yourself out with the Fruit Loops and have all the bagels and all the things that you want to have, right? But if you want to make the healthy choices, they're still making money off of us.
Right.
They're still making money.
Yeah.
So the only way, and this is why they get so crazy on like having raw milk,
Yeah.
water, barreled water. If you barrel your own water, rainwater comes in and you filter your own water, that's a problem. That's a problem. Um, Seeds, they control the seeds.
Yep.
You have to try to get your own seeds. A lot of these seeds now don't even grow the actual thing anymore,
Right.
because they've sucked out the ability for you to grow an orange tree, because they don't want you to grow an orange tree, because then you'll be sustainable.
Right.
Then you'll have vitamin C and you won't get scurvy. So, you
Hey.
know, right? So for me, it's like we're in a battle, which I think, and I say this probably more for my own benefit, to hear myself, for almost my own comfort, but I think it's coming out of something. I feel like more people today can see things a little bit better. Now there's a lot of people that are asleep, that don't know any better. They go to Starbucks, they get a little sandwich that's just nothing but carbs and nothing, and the eggs in there, the microwave eggs. You might as well eat a turd. You got nothing going in, and then a big giant sugar drink,
Yep.
and this is how they try to sustain.
Right.
And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, they feel like crap.
Yep.
They're tired. By the end of the week, they want to go home and veg out. Well, this is
Right.
what's wanted,
Right.
because what was it George Carlin said, we really, what they don't want is highly intelligent, uh
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
individuals
Yep.
that are critical thinkers,
That's right.
that can look at something and say, is that really what you're selling me? Is that, they don't want that. They want you to fall asleep, listen, take what we're telling you, and you own nothing, you will have nothing, and you will be happy.
Right.
That is an actual thing.
Yes.
And people can call it, oh, this guy is a conspiracy, whatever. No, that's happening right now.
That's been
Dumb dumb.
said. It has been
That's been
said.
said verbally by
Yes.
people in that organization that will remain nameless. I don't know who they are, but whoever they are, I'm sure that those individuals, whoever they are, know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's where we stand on the food. Now, George, since we're kind of wrapping up, we've
Hmm.
done where the food industry also was taken over by large corporations, where they control the foods.
Right.
Like I said, 12 companies pretty much control all the food that we eat.
Yes.
Everything that you eat is controlled by about 12 different companies. And it's not a secret.
Right.
It's not a secret. Just go on a box, look at the bottom, see the company that's at the bottom, and then go online and Google who's the parent company, and that will take you to the actual company that owns all that.
Very true.
Dum dum. So you can do that. You know what I mean? It's like it always amazes me. I had a conversation with somebody. This is not long ago, George. I swear to God. I said something like, "Yeah, I mean, well, McDonald's. If you eat it every day, it's gonna definitely you definitely can get sick." Oh, really?
Wow.
I didn't. What do you mean? Like how? And I was dumbfounded. I was like, "No, man." And they're serious. So I was like, "Well, there's a lot of nitrates and a lot of. It's not real. The meat is ingested and infused and then processed and then you know." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that." And so it amazes me. It amazes me.
Yeah, just real quick on a quick story, and I told this on my show when I was talking to somebody once. Someone we know who no, someone we know as far as like an old friend. We found out an old friend that lives in another state.
Ah,
Just recently was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
oh
Unfortunately,
no.
yeah, it was really, yeah. We're all
Oh
like,
gosh.
wow.
I'm sorry.
So
I didn't
they're
mean.
they're going through treatments and stuff like that, right? Well, somebody else I know who's closer to me, who's mutual between us, right? There was a conversation happening, and I had mentioned, and my wife had mentioned, well, cancer is a funny thing, but a lot of things can cause it, and it could be on the nutritional side, it could be toxicity, it could be
Sugar.
a lot of things, yeah, and this person said with a straight face, food and nutrition has nothing to do with it.
Wow.
And I said that story to a doctor that I was talking to on my show, and that was the exact reaction I got.
Wow. It's shocking, man. It's shocking that people can think that what you put into the vessel doesn't have any effect on the vessel. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, take your car and put Mazzola in the
Right,
engine and
right,
drive it around for a little bit. What do you? I mean, it's unbelievable.
yeah, yeah,
And this is the battle, and this has a lot to do again with the again, we always say the mainstream media, but it's not really covered. It's not educated. We definitely don't. The kids don't learn this in school. I
no,
mean, they're being
no,
fed. I my son goes to school. He takes his lunch
right,
from here.
right,
He and
right,
sometimes he'll look at the food over there and he'll be like, "Yeah, but it was pizza." And I'm, all
yeah,
right,
yeah,
but still, we're not being educated because it hurts the bottom line for us to know.
yeah,
That's the bottom line is the bottom line, and I think that that's part of the scary. It's just scary to be in that world where there are people that really would put profits in front of your. It's like they don't care.
yeah,
They
yeah,
just do not care. They're making their money, and there are people out there who don't have this knowledge. And one of the goals is really to just try to educate as many people as possible with the time that we have here, and hopefully a few of them will be able to educate others. And at some point in history, we'll look back at this time in our lives and think like, wow. So that our kids, our great, 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 grandkids, I hope will be having the conversation of saying, so they were creating food that kills you, and people are like, yeah, yeah, for what? For money,
yeah,
just for money, and they were killing people. Yeah, and they didn't tell them. No, they didn't tell them. They didn't say one thing. But how come people didn't know? Well, the media was controlled, but and I hope that will come to that point, and whenever it is, I don't know if in my lifetime we'll get there, but I hope that if you're out there and you're listening to this, or at least if you can share this with someone that maybe can get this information. And this goes for anything, the entertainment portion that we did, the health portion that we did, and the food portion. All three of them can affect a person's life.
correct.
This is the artist blueprint. We talk about artist things here, but all these things affect the artist.
That's
Trust
right.
me.
That's right.
Trust me. If you're not getting healthy, if you're not eating the right food, your brain ain't gonna function right. You ain't gonna go give a good performance. Or
That's
you
right.
may do it once, you may do it twice. People say, well, what about this person and that person? They did drugs and they did drugs. Okay, good. They are not you. You know, Jimi Hendrix. If some people mention that, I'm like, he's dead.
He's dead. Exactly.
What's his name? The guy from the Eagles, Joe Walsh.
Oh, Joe Walsh. Yeah.
He was saying because when he was doing drugs, people were telling him, and he go, that he was doing drugs, and he was saying, oh well, somebody told him, well, Jimi Hendrix was doing it, and he was like, yeah, but Jimmy's dead.
Right.
I'm still here because I
Exactly.
stopped. Clapton and all those guys. But anyway, we can go on. This could be one of those subjects I think that is definitely near dear in our hearts, because we care about our audience and we care about you and we care about your health, and we want artists to be healthy and be able to be around for many, many years to create wonderful work and to inspire others to create wonderful work. That's really the goal of this show, is to do that. So we want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us. We will see you all again next week. We're excited about next week's show. We have a really good, interesting show that we're setting up for next week. And tell your friends. We really, really always appreciate a share and a nice comment. It really helps what they call the algorithms. I keep hearing about that word. It really helps if you can share the show and make a comment, a nice comment, or whatever comment you want to make. But we appreciate you very much. So, George, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Great information. And we will see you all next week. Thank you. God bless. And as always, peace.